What is up, guys? It's Doo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about delayed c-betting in 3-bet pots, specifically on ace-high boards. We have our MDA, we have our artificial intelligence, and we have our GTO wizard sim. So we're going to take a very common spot. We are in the small blind. Let's go to GTO wizard. We are in the small blind, and we decide to 3-bet a button RFI. The button calls and we take a flop. The flop comes ace 8-2 two-tone. We know that this is not a range bet. A lot of people will range here, but there are better exploits on the turn and river because most people know how to play versus a flop c-bet. This is a very common node, so we want to put people in uncommon spots. So let's say we have a hand like Jack 10 of diamonds, and we decide to check, and the button decides to check back. So now we get to the turn. We want to look at the turn and the discrepancies between a solver and population. It's very important to understand where the population is messing up. So let's say I delayed c-bet 50% sizing. We see a solver is folding 39.1% of the time. Let's go to MDA and look at field as 3-bet pot in position pre-flop caller, button versus big blind for this spot. We notice if I choose a bet 50 on the turn, they're folding 50% overall, which is an overfold of 11% from the solver. We can also look at preliminary data too. Before we go into the filters, we see that there is a big overfold in the delayed c-bet line, so you are incentivized to c-bet on the turn. Now, it's important to understand that when we look at the filters, if we go to ace high, we see it's even more of an overfold. So it goes from 50% to 55%. We know a solver is defending or only folding 39% of the time. So we get a 16% overfold with our delayed c-bet sizing, but we're not done yet. If I decide to c-bet turn and my opponent calls, what should I do on the river? Let's say I have a hand like Jack 10 of diamonds. Should I bet or should I check? Well, let's go to notes. We know that the turn is overfolded, 55% on an ace-high board compared to GTO of 39%. But we want to look at sizing structures and bluff EV. We need to understand that the turn sizing is going to affect our river bluff EV. If I decide to bet 50 on the turn and bluff river, what sizing should I use? Should I use the all-in sizing, which is 151%, or should I use a smaller sizing? Well, here, if we put this in artificial intelligence, if I jam all in, I have a bluff EV of 7.7 big blinds. But if I use bet 50, my bluff EV jumps 4.3 big blinds to 12 big blinds. So you want to use the sizing structure of check bet 50 when bluffing with a hand like Jack 10 of diamonds. But let's compare this to a bigger delayed c-bet sizing. So I'm going to go to bet 100 on the turn, and we're going to go to artificial intelligence and GTO wizard. First, let's check out GTO wizard. If I delayed c-bet 100% sizing, what should the button be folding? 54.4%. Now, what does MDA say for this spot? Well, if we go to MDA, we know they fold 62% overall, but again on the ace-high board, they fold 69%, so we're getting about a 15% overfold. So this is a good sizing to use if you're just delayed c-betting on the turn, but giving up on the river. But if you're bluffing rivers, we need to compare the EV of bet 100 on the turn to bet 50 on the turn. Let's say I go to the river and I go all in with my bluff. Is this a good play? Should I be betting 100 on the turn and jamming 84% pot on the river? Let's look at notes. We see if we go to the river and we use bet 100 on the turn, it's actually a slightly negative EV bluff. You don't want to be jamming all in because the range is too strong. We know if we bet 100 on the turn, they fold 69% in reality, and GTO is around 54%. So you're getting a huge overfold on the turn. But because they overfold the turn so much, the river becomes a negative EV bluff. So if you're bluffing on the river, you want to use smaller sizing to increase your bluff EV. If we go to artificial intelligence and compare the bluff EV, we see a 4 big blind discrepancy. So if you bet 100 on the turn, you want to be using smaller sizing on the river. But the highest EV sizing is to use bet 50 and then to bluff smaller on the river. We see a bluff EV of 12 big blinds. In the check bet 50 sizing structure, compare that to a check bet 50 bet 150 all in, and the bluff EV is only 7.7 big blinds. So a lot going on here, but in this spot, a small blind 3-bet versus a button call. If you decide to check flop and you want to be on the turn, you should use a bet 50 sizing structure as a default until you get more information versus your opponent. This will be the highest EV bluff sizing when compared to bigger sizings. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.